Welcome back to our mapping workshop, day 2. Before we get started, I want to remind you to make sure that you are actively participating in this workshop. That means doing all the work, that means answering all the questions rather than passively just consuming the information. That is the only way that you will get the value from this workshop. So I highly recommend doing the work. So yesterday, in day 1, you set your 1-year goal. You figured out why this goal is so important to you to come back to throughout the year, to look at why and remind yourself. And you came up with a whole list of reasons for why you may not be able to commit to achieving your goal. So today, we are taking that list of reasons further by imagining everything that could potentially get in the way this year of achieving that goal, and then making a plan for those obstacles for when they come up. So, our goal for today is to know exactly what obstacles might come up, the ones that we can account for, and exactly what to do when those obstacles present themselves so that they won't stop you from continuing working on your goal. This is hard brain work. Your brain might be super resistant to coming up with solutions, to even acknowledging that there are solutions for these obstacles. And it may even be resistant to coming up with the obstacles in the first place. So if you find yourself saying, nothing's going to stop me, then this is the time to think even harder, because there are always things that will get us off track. This is your chance to account for those things to make sure that they don't throw you off. So even though our brains might not want to do the work, they still can do the work. And knowing that you have a plan for when illnesses come up, when kids are on break from school, when the economy's not so great, when you might be going through a divorce or a breakup or moving to a new house, and other events that could come up, then it can give you some relief in those harder moments that you already have a plan. You can come back and look at the plan that you made in these mapping notes and pull it out to know what to do in that moment. Okay, so here's the first bit of homework. You may have already done it, but if not, you can do it now, is to write out all of the obstacles in the way of reaching your goal that you can think of right now. So this can include like tangible issues like not enough time or kids at home, but it can also include intangible things like your thoughts about yourself, your thoughts about your goal, things that we talked a bit about yesterday. It is not necessary to pretend like you don't have any doubts about your ability to reach your goal. And in fact, resisting those doubts or resisting those thoughts that come up are going to make it even harder for you to continue working, because I do believe I said this yesterday, they'll still be running under the surface anyway, stopping you. It could look like procrastination, like you have self-doubt, but you don't realize it's self-doubt. So you end up just folding laundry and doing dishes or something. Guilty. Instead of actually doing the work. So resisting the fact, and it's a fact, resisting the fact that these thoughts and feelings are there will absolutely work against you when it comes to achieving your goal. And when those doubts are running under the surface without addressing them, they turn into, like I already said, procrastination. They can turn into getting super busy doing everything else besides working towards your goal. Or they can even lead you to forgetting that you had a goal in the first place, pretending like the goal doesn't actually need to happen, like it wasn't a big deal, you don't actually want it, or just flat out giving up, being like, I can't do it. All of that can happen when you don't address those unhelpful thoughts and feelings that are under there. None of these things, like those things I just listed, none of that means that you're lazy. None of that means that you're too tired or unmotivated or incapable of doing the things, or that you're not able to follow through on anything. All it means is that you haven't done the deep dive to figure out why you're putting off the things and not following through on them. So, this is a funny story. I think it's funny. A couple years ago, I discovered that the reason I hate doing dishes, the reason why I never wanted to do dishes was because I didn't want to get my hands wet. I didn't know that this was the reason. I just was like, of course, nobody wants to do dishes. Like, this is just normal, whatever. I didn't put that much thought into it. As soon as I figured out that that was the reason, I was like, this is stupid. Like, I can get my hands wet, I can do the stuff, and then I can dry my hands, and then they're dry. It's really not a big deal. So, as soon as I figured out that that kind of silly thought was going on, then I haven't had a problem since then in getting my dishes done regularly. So silly, I know, but it was there and it was actively working against me, even though I didn't know that it was there. So taking the time to look into really what is it that's happening that's making me procrastinate? What is actually making me not want to do this thing? That can make like a world of difference in not procrastinating anymore. So right now, what you're doing is exposing all of the thoughts and the feelings, getting them out of your body and onto the paper, knowing that you are okay to process these thoughts and feelings. You're safe. It's just a physical feeling in your body that you don't need to avoid. You've felt these feelings before. You're getting all of those out. And then you're also getting the actual tangible obstacles out on paper as well, which could include things like having a baby or getting a divorce or getting married or moving to a new house or kids home for summer break or knowing that life is going to be really busy during the holidays because you're spending time with family and wrapping gifts and all the things that come with holiday time. All of those obstacles that you imagine coming up, you're going to get them out on your paper. And then we will begin making a plan for those obstacles, like asking yourself, how can I still get the work done even when these things come up? How can I do what I need to do still in the amount of time that I'm giving myself to do them? How can I adjust my plan if these things do come up? So that's where we're heading now, is making a plan for the obstacles. Once your list is complete, you can pause it if you need to. Then we'll come to that question. All right. So, with making your plan for obstacles, this is the part of our workshop where we are hoping for the best, but planning for the worst if that happens to come up. You want to prevent as many things catching you off guard as you possibly can by making a plan for them ahead of time. And the plans that you come up with today we'll be using for day 4. So make sure that you come up with your plan so that you can then add it into your action plan for day 4. So what can you do for each of the things on your list? In a little bit, I will share a whole bunch of ideas for different things. I'll just be reading them off my list. But for now, use your own ideas, your own thoughts that you have. And notice if your brain, I brought this up earlier, notice if your brain is saying there's nothing that I can do about this. Don't let it stop there. Like the resistance like this to coming up with solutions to problems is so common, partly because of the outsourcing of thinking we've done so much by Googling things and asking for help from other people. And also because we have become so resistant to seeing solutions because it kind of makes us, it gives us a chance to relax and not have to work hard and not have to overcome these difficult things. Being like, there's nothing I can do. It is what it is. Just throw your hands up in the air and be like, I guess I just have to accept the situation. No, 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 no. You don't have to stay stuck there. This is common, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to hold yourself back because it's just too hard to overcome. So let yourself open up. So, to go beyond resistance, you can ask yourself some questions like, how would somebody else solve these problems? How have I solved these problems in the past, these same types of problems? What are all the possible ways I can imagine solving this obstacle? So that's where you're getting out a whole bunch of the bad ideas where you're like, nope, this won't work, but I'm going to write it down anyway, to get down to the better creative solutions that happen by thinking critically, like we have been working toward. This is a major, major part of reaching goals. And in order to create something different this year than you've ever created in your life before, you have to be creative in coming up with solutions like this, trying something different, thinking a different way than you ever have before. This is how you create something you've never created before, is by thinking differently. So make sure the obstacle plans that you come up with are like a step by step instruction, so that when the thing happens, when the obstacle comes up, you can come back to your notes and be like, check, I can do this off the list. And then I can do this next thing. And then this next thing, so that you know exactly what to do. You've made all the decisions ahead of time. You don't have to worry about coming up with a new plan at that moment. So, for example, if your child is home sick from school on any given day, you can have the plan of setting them up with the iPad, books, and TV, snacks, and water, and then setting up their little cozy nest on the couch. The second step could be, I'm going to set my alarm for every 45 minutes to go check on them. And then in the meantime, you're working on your goal while you can. And then you go back every 45 minutes and you're still able to work on the goal, and you know that they're pretty set. This is, mostly for older, slightly older kids, not the youngest babies of them all. That way you know exactly what to do when your child is homesick. You don't have to let it send you into a panic like, how am I going to still get my time in? Or if the obstacle that comes up has to do with fear or doubt or insecurities, some of the things we've already talked about, then you could have some go to mantras to help shift you out of those stuck feelings and remind you why you're working on your goals in the first place. So, some of those could be something like, I'm going to figure this out. I can still do the work even when I'm feeling tired or not good. I'm going to figure out all of the ways that this goal won't work, that I won't be able to achieve it, on the way to figuring out what does work for me to achieve it. The failure is only getting me closer. If other people can do this, so can I. Why not me? There are like a million other mantras or new thoughts, new beliefs that you can try on. Consider what will be helpful for you when you are exhausted and or anxious or depressed or scared or any of the other feelings that can come up. The mantras that will help you when you're feeling like that are different than the mantras that will help you from when you're feeling great and like on top of the world. Like saying, I can do this 100%. I'm so excited. That's not going to help you when you're feeling all of these not as great feelings. So, right now, if this is an obstacle you see coming up, write out exactly what those mantras will be, things that you think will help, and what your specific plan is going to be. So that could be like, as soon as I start feeling, insert that specific feeling here, then I will get out my mapping notes, which is what you're doing right now, read the mantras that I wrote out, and really allow myself to feel the truth in them, reread my why for why I'm working toward this goal from day one, and write out why I still want to continue working on this goal, even with those difficult feelings. So that's an example of your step by step. Here's what I'm going to do when this obstacle comes up. So, for the rest of today's video, I'll give you some ideas for ways that you can solve the obstacles. But think of these as just as a jumping off point for you to think of your own ideas and get creative. And remember, rather than being like, that won't work, this will never work, Ask yourself, how could I make this work? How could I make these ideas work? Or what ideas would work better? Okay, so here's a list of just a whole bunch of things. First, I already mentioned this, sit kids at home. Set them up with the iPad or TV, food and water, and check on them every now and then. I mentioned that already. Have their other parent care for them. Ask their grandparents to come sit with them. Take the day off from working on your goal or the week, however long the illness lasts, and adjust your schedule for the rest of the week to accommodate that change. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. You just have to figure out what will work for you. Next, kids home for summer break. This is a big obstacle for a lot of us and for a lot of my clients. We've worked through what to do when that happens, how to still be able to work. So, options: create a plan on day 4 of our workshop to plan on making your work towards your goal in the summertime easier or like a little less structured. Plan that into your plan. You can sign your kids up for a lot of camps. You can take turns with other mom friends taking care of the kids for the day. That's what I do with somebody else, my daughter's friend's mom. We alternate days where we take each other's kids. They can go with a grandparent on Monday, the other grandparent on Tuesday, cousins on Wednesday, that kind of thing. You might not have family around. That's okay. There are still other options. You could hire a high school or college age student to care for your kid for the summer because that might be less expensive than daycare and because they're off for the summer as well. You could set up a different project for your child for each day so that they're occupied during the time that you're going to be working on your goal. You could let them do whatever they feel like doing. Like if they want to binge on TV or video games or whatever else, you can let that be okay because they also need that unstructured and downtime, just like we all do. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to let that lead to guilt just because you need a few hours to work on your own thing. That is okay too. Okay, so next one. Those are just some ideas. Remember, think of your own as well, along with that. One thing that happens for people sometimes is they end up hating the structure and the schedule that they created for themselves. They feel trapped in it and they just want to quit. They just want to go back to how they were, how life was before. So, some ways to get around that obstacle are creating flexibility in your plan. This is a million times important, and I'll talk about it more on day 4. This is the only way that I've been able to get through specific goals. You could decide to only spend a little bit of time each day on your goal or only a couple days a week so that you get a little bit of separation from it depending on what your goal is. You can decide how to go about that. Make sure to consciously choose not to think about your goal in the off time so that you have that moment to step away and disconnect and feel like, I guess, regenerate your motivation toward your goal by actively not thinking about it. And remember to do all the fun stuff in life too, so that you don't turn into this lifeless robot or zombie-like person who only works all the time. This has happened to me, happens to me a little more often than I'd like to admit. So remember to have the fun in there. That could be a way of overcoming the obstacle of feeling trapped in your schedule and feeling like all you do is work. Make time for the fun. Okay, so next one, getting distracted and letting everything else come first. I'm really good at this one too. This happens often and I have my ways of handling it so that it doesn't just keep getting me off track. So one option, consider how it is that you're able to make it to the appointments that you make or how you're able to make yourself go to work all the time. And how can you apply that to your goals too? Like, you're going to put it on your calendar that you're working on your goal during this specific time. How can you get yourself to commit to it in the same way as going to your dentist or doctor appointment or going to work? Another solution for this, when you notice ideas come up during the appointed working on your goals time, write them down somewhere where you will remember them so that you can come to them when you do have the extra time. That's one thing that happens for me fairly often because I work from home. I can see all the things that need to get done in my house, and I'm like, oh, it would be so easy to just switch the laundry really fast, or to scrub the dishes since I'm not worried about getting my hands wet anymore. But instead of doing that, I just write down the things, knowing that I can still get to those after I'm done with these hours that I've given to work on, in that particular case for me, my business hours, or for you outside of the time where you're not working, or outside of the time where you're working on your goal. Okay, what else? Make sure the people that you live with know not to distract you during these specific times. Be really consistent and ruthless in upholding this boundary for yourself, because this is your time. Your family or your children, they don't, when they're older, they don't want to feel like they are the reason that you weren't able to do what you wanted with your life. They don't want to feel like they held you back from anything, held you back from reaching your goals. So let them know at any given point when your hours are that you're going to be focusing on your own thing, and let them know not to disturb you during those times. So this isn't necessarily as possible with really young children who don't know what boundaries are. This is an idea for when they're older and can start to learn what your boundaries are and how to not cross them. You can turn your phone on to do not disturb. I do this regularly. Mine's on do not disturb right now, where only the people on my favorites list, the favorites that I set up, if they call, then I will get a notification. And those people only call if there's an emergency. Like, for example, when my daughter's at school, if her school calls, it will ring because they only call me if I need to pick her up from school for some reason. Otherwise, I don't get any notifications. It's very handy. Um, okay. And then another solution to getting distracted, letting everything else come before your work towards your goal, is reminding yourself why you're doing the work and why it's extremely important that it happens during the times that you set aside. Why it's extremely important to follow through with this plan that you made and commit to yourself. And then one more thing, if something does happen to come up during that time, reschedule it so it doesn't conflict. Okay, another thing, another obstacle that can come up is some devastating event like divorce or death, something along those lines. So with this, it's a little bit different. Your solution might be a little bit different than other obstacles. First, you can allow yourself the time to grieve or to adjust to the loss. This could take time. This could take months. It could even take a year or longer. These types of circumstances do not need to be sucked up and overcome or pushed aside for the sake of your goal. You have to deal with it. It's just what happens sometimes, and that's okay. So maybe it means that you postpone your work towards your goal for a while. Maybe it means that you cut back on the amount of time that you're giving towards your goal, allowing time to do whatever needs to be done to handle this obstacle that came up, to handle the feelings that come up with the loss. And I have totally been here before. I have been through a divorce. I've been through losing family members that were very close to me. I have gone through extremely stressful custody issues and other types of things that have completely knocked me off of my feet before. And in these cases, I just gave myself time to be, because that's all I could manage. Time to cry, time to work when I felt like it, but not force myself to or feel guilty if I didn't. Time to vent to people that I trusted, to let other people help me do the things that needed to get done that I wasn't capable of doing in those moments. I wasn't capable of making myself do. And all of this is okay. Like, not every second of your life needs to be a growth moment or a push yourself to the next level moment, um, especially when difficult circumstances like this come up. All right. Next obstacle, forgetting that you had a goal in the first place. This happens more often than you would ever imagine. And so, the solutions for this, if you know this would come up for you, solutions for this would be, and I mentioned this yesterday, I think, write your goal on a sticky note where you're going to put it on your mirror in your bathroom or on your desk or on your nightstand or wherever else you'll see it regularly, on your fridge, maybe. I don't like it on my nightstand because my room is for sleep and rest. I don't want to be thinking about my goals when I'm trying to sleep. That's it. I'll get up and look at my computer and see my sticky note on my computer. Um, Another solution, set yourself a weekly reminder of what your goal is and why you want to keep working on it. Put it on your calendar so that you're seeing that regularly. You could make a mantra where you repeat your goal to yourself every morning, or you write it out 10 times every day or every week or every month, however often you would need to remember. There are a significant number of ways of remembering, but basically, just don't let yourself forget what goal you're setting. Okay, next one. What do I have? I have two more. So, another obstacle could be fear or doubt or insecurities. I talked about this earlier, but I'm repeating it now. Write out the mantras to shift yourself out of those feelings. And remember, make the mantras that might actually work when you're feeling down, not the ones that you come up with when you're feeling really great. They will not be the same. Reread your mapping notes, the notes that you're writing out right now for our workshop. Call a friend who's really good at listening to you and building you up so that you feel better. Another option is listen to podcasts or read books that are about these feelings. And then if you feel inspired by them, take action after, like when you feel inspired, not after you finish the book or the podcast, so that you don't lose that motivation to then get working on your goal. Work with me as your coach to process and go beyond these feelings. Remind yourself of other times that you've been able to do hard things when you had the same feelings and like how you got out of that. And let the feelings come along for the ride. You don't need to entertain them, but they can still be there. You can still do the work even when those feelings are there. It works. You can, I promise. I've done it. I do it over and over. Okay, the last one where I'll give you a bunch of ideas is procrastination, which I have already talked about a bit. This is a big obstacle for a lot of people. So, like I mentioned earlier, figure out the real reason you aren't doing the things. Usually, there's a valid reason why you're putting off the things, like I have talked about, or you think it's going to be a lot harder than it really will be, or maybe this isn't even the right action for you to take in the first place. So look into the reasons and see what you find there. Another solution is break your task down into teeny tiny steps and allow yourself to be okay with just doing that one step. So if you make it so small, the first step in getting yourself the first step in your to-do list towards your goals, if you make the first one so small that you can't not do it and be okay with yourself only taking that step for that day, then it is more likely that you will generate momentum each day as you're going along, and you'll be able to do more and more. Or Sometimes it's just that you need to get started in the first place, and then you can continue even more, doing more work after that. That happens often for me. But even if you just do this like 1 to 5 minute step and be okay with that, think about how much further along you'll be with your goal if you do that each day compared to if you just do absolutely nothing at all. Okay. Another thing, get someone to help you work on the things you need to work on, or even just to be in the room with you while you're doing the work. So I do this fairly often. I will ask my sister-in-law, Michelle, who may or may not be watching. Hi, Michelle. I ask her to go sit with me at a coffee shop where we will both sit next to each other with our coffees on our computers and do our own separate work. Um, and sometimes we'll talk in the middle and say hi and whatever and run ideas by each other. But what this does for me is just helps me see that somebody else is also working. That makes me want to continue working. And it's a little bit of accountability too, where I'm not just going to sit there and do nothing while she's over here working. It makes me want to focus. It makes me want to get something done. And then if I get stuck on something, she talks through it with me. We do this, we go back and forth with that. And just the feeling of being out in some other place where there's nothing I can really do except for focus on my work. Like I'm not at home where I can clean my house. And I'm out where people are, just feeling connected to people. Just that can sometimes help get you working again. That accountability, that having somebody there supporting you, and just being around people. Okay, let me see. This next one, set up accountability for yourself in some way. So sometimes we don't want to do this because we're like, I just don't want to be accountable. I just don't want to have to do the thing. But if reaching your goal is something that you really actually do want, this accountability piece could be the key for you. I have avoided telling people about my goals so much of the time because I'm like, what if I feel like I don't want to do it? What if I change my mind? But I have only lately, like the last few years, I've only set goals that I know that I want to work on. And then I figure out how to hold myself accountable, whether that's with other people or in other ways, which I'll share with you in a moment, to make sure that I do it, even when I don't want to. And as much as I hate that, I love, love, love the fact that I get the things done. I love it. It's way more important to me than feeling crappy while I'm doing the things. So this could mean asking someone to check in with you at a certain date or time, um, to see if you got done what you said you were going to get done. It could mean hiring a coach that you're going to check in with weekly about your progress and knowing you have to tell them if you did or didn't do the thing. And it could also mean, this is what I did for this workshop, actually. I probably wouldn't be here recording this right now if I didn't do this. It could mean making a public announcement about what it is that you're going to be doing and then posting after you have done it. And so with this workshop, I made an announcement a few weeks ago about saying that I was going to do this. And that was before I had actually done any of the work for it. And the reason for that was because I knew, just like the last couple years with this same workshop, I knew that if I didn't tell people that I was doing it, I would just not do it. I'd be like, this is too hard. This is not going to be any good. All of these thoughts that have been coming up with, like, through my mind about this kind of thing, all of those thoughts stopped me at least 2, if not 3 or 4 years of creating this workshop. So because I made this public announcement to hold me accountable, which for a while I was so angry with myself that I did that, because I was like, I don't want to do this. But now that I'm actually doing it, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm so happy. I'm so thankful to past me a few weeks ago for knowing that that was what I needed to actually get this work done. So thank you, past me. I'm hopeful that she's helping all of you who might be watching this as well. Okay, So those are some ideas of getting through procrastination and all of the other obstacles that I mentioned. So let's do a little recap of what we've talked about. By now, you have your list of all the obstacles you can imagine coming up, along with your solutions for these obstacles. If you don't have those yet, please feel free to pause the video and then come right back when you have that set. And remember that unforeseen events will still come up throughout the year. We obviously can't see the future. We can't plan for every single obstacle that comes up, but knowing that we have a solid plan for these ones that we do know about can help relieve us a little bit in the pressure when those other unforeseen things will come up. So that way we don't have as many things throughout the year to have to figure out. We just have these other few things that we didn't see coming. All right, so for the rest of the week, tomorrow we will be talking about becoming the person who has already achieved the goal now to make it way easier to make your plan for the year and achieve the goal. And then on day 4 is where we finally get to make the action plan, including all the solutions that you just came up with today for your obstacles. So this midpoint where we are is the spot where the workshop starts to feel harder, or your brain already feels fatigued because it's been working so hard to think through all of these things, where you're like, I'm tired. I don't want to do anymore. But that point that we're at right now is the place where you push through, you make it happen anyway, you continue to the end, because this is so much in service of the work you'll be doing towards your goal. So building the skill right now of continuing this all the way through the finish is a skill that you can then apply to continuing with your goal all the way to the finish. And the people who do all of this work that we're doing are the ones that are so much more likely to achieve their goals. They know it's hard work. They're okay with the hard work. They're okay with feeling tired because they know that it's ultimately helping them get what they want out of their lives, out of this year's goals. All right. So, as always, feel free to reach out for coaching, to share your celebrations. I would love to hear any of the breakthroughs or insights that you've had so far. And I would really love to hear the parts that stand out to you the most. Those are the things where if I get that kind of feedback, then I can really make sure to highlight those in next year's workshop, so that each year it gets better and better and better and builds with your feedback. So please feel free to email me, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, message me on Voxer. And we are halfway through our workshop. I'm so excited. This has already been fun for me. I hope it is for you. And I will see you tomorrow for day 3. Bye, friends. Good luck.